today's objectives of today are, that was repetitive. Today's objectives are sorting and limiting results, aggregate functions, grouping by having within the aggregate function space, and logical operators. So what we're going to start out with today is sorting and limiting. And I'm going to start out with that because essentially, y'all, we are already doing that in our work. So sorting and limiting results. What are sorting and limiting? Sorting is when you essentially sort out your data results based on the certain characteristics that you're looking for. Like for example, order, and we do that using order by. So when we have our syntax, like if I say select our columns from our table, order by this column in ascending order, ASC or DESC, and I'm gonna write it in the chat. So order by allows you to order that the output by that column and in ascending or descending order. Um, and limit. So limit goes into, you know how when we're within our database and we right click our table and select our top 1,000 rows, that top 1,000 at its core is considered a limit because what it does is it limits your output that you get within your data set. So when I say top 1,000, I can essentially modify that top 1,000 and say top 10, top 20, top, whatever. That allows you to limit how much data is returned back into your results set. So sorting and limiting results. We're already doing that, but I also wanted to give you the ability to like be able to explicitly label what you're doing. That order by comes in have in it's a good practice. Let's say you are trying to see like what's the latest entry or what's the latest entry is a good one and you want to order something by like a certain date. It's good for that. So order by and limit. Any questions on that? Okay. Now why my mouse ain't clicking? Okay. I also wanted to touch base on what we did last week as well, even though I feel like pretty confident that everybody has been able to capture it, but I do like to reiterate what we did last week. Last week we focused on those DML languages, which is a data manipulation language that select, insert, update, and delete. Select is what we use to retrieve data from the database. We are selecting our columns from our table. Everything goes back to tables or columns. You doing something with a table or a column. Insert. We talked about insert into the table name, the columns within that table, and then the values within that column. So we're basically going table, columns, and then the values. Update. This allows you to modify existing data within that database. Update, table name, set this column equals 993. Basically, update this column to 993. Where? Where this condition is met. Where this column equals John. Last week, we also talked about filtering and conditions using this where statement. And that's going to be important to support y'all for this week as well. Um, delete. Delete from this table where this condition is met, where this column equals John. Where is a condition, and it allows you to explicitly filter down your data based on what are you looking for. I don't need this full table. I only need this output. I only need this data set. I only need this. That filter allows you to explicitly hone in on what data supports your analysis. I don't need all this. What you need? Any questions about that? Okay. Let me check the check sometime. Okay, yeah, good. Okay. Now, so I told you that this week We are going to lean in on your two new things that you're going to get exposed to this week are logical operators and aggregate functions. So let's start out with our logical operators first. Okay. So everything we do, pretty much, like I told y'all last week. Last week was the floor. Everything we do from session one until the most complex session, which is window functions. Everything we do essentially builds upon the next. It's a lasagna. I'm a big bag. It's a lasagna. We layering, and this is what we doing. So everything we're doing, we do it like that. So this week I'm gonna stretch you just out a little bit with these logical operators. So what are logical operators? Logical operators are used to combine multiple conditions. Last week we talked about conditions. Select this column, this column, this column from this table where this condition is met or where this column equals it. That where is a condition all day long. The example that I use is coffee. You got your coffee, and I don't know about y'all, but I used to have like a K cup type thing, and I don't like it no more. They're like, I ain't finna drink that. It don't work. So the coffee, I got a 1990s break room coffee pot. You got your coffee. You put your coffee in the on top of your filter. Outside in your pot is what you need. That is what you need. Filtering within data analysis is the same way. I got all this data in my table. I put my filter and I only get out what I need and what is useful for me. That is a filter. So, what is a logical operator? A logical operator is when you have the ability to combine multiple filters. That's when you get into what exactly do I need? It allows for you to keep your data clean, to keep your outputs clean, and to be able to be specific in your X and in your code. Um, so there are multiple logical operators. I honestly don't know how many. It's probably, I don't know. I don't know all of them. It don't matter. Because and the reason that I say this because I've had people ask before, like, well, what are all the logical operators? And it's like, I don't know. But what I do teach you all are the most pertinent ones and the most useful ones for your day-to-day use. I also teach you what is a logical operator and when the appropriate time is to utilize it. So the ones that I teach you are and, or, not. I actually teach you two ways to do not. Not, between, and in. These are the ones that we focus on. These are your high priorities when you are navigating the space. Now, what I'm going to do to y'all, I'm going to ask first. When you look at this syntax, what do you think the output of this syntax is? This first one right here.
People in the IT department making, I don't know what that one is, but making that amount of money.
Greater than, yep. Okay, so
There you go, greater than.
I literally like go back to second grade with the greater than less than. I do my hands like the alligator mouth. Like I'm like, okay, it's bigger than, it's equal to. I struggle with greater than or less than too. Even when I'm writing my code, like I do it and I'm like, that ain't what I wanted. I wanted the other one. So yeah. But this is exactly what that's doing. We are selecting our columns from our table where this our first condition, where this column equals IT and this column is greater than 50,000. This is a logical operator where this is our first condition, this column equals this value, and this column is greater than 50,000. Now, when I say and, I'm implying that both of those conditions are true. I want this and that. It has to meet both of those conditions. Both of those conditions. So if I am retrieving data from this table and I got somebody that's in IT that makes less than $50,000, I'm not gonna get that data because it does not meet both of those conditions. So when I say and, I literally mean and. this column and this column. I need both of them conditions in my output. What do you think that this syntax is doing?
It's asking for all the data from either the IT department or the HR department.
Yep. In my output, I'm going to get all the records from this table where this column equals IT or this column equals HR. So, or naturally is going to expand your data set. Go to the store and get me this or that. I want either one of them. Like when you order your groceries and it asks for, okay, this is my item. However, this is a backup item. Give me one of them. So your data set is either going to have this or that. It can in your and naturally, if I use an or as a logical operator, my pool is going to be a little bigger because I'm not as picky. Whereas and it has to meet both of those conditions. Or if it meets this condition or that condition, I want them both. This, what do you think that this syntax is doing?
Anything that is not from the IT department.
Yep. Now this is not. Select this column from this table where not this column equals IT. Another way to do it, and a more I actually see this more commonly than this, is I'm putting in chat equal sign and an exclamation point. So what I'm saying is select all of my columns from this table where salary, and instead of equals, I will put like that symbol that I posted in the chat. Where my mouse at? Oh, here it is.
Is that conditional on whatever database management system you're using?
Yep. Now let me talk about your answer. That's a very good question. Now that also is dependent upon like certain dialects, like certain things. So y'all remember in session one how we talked about the different databases, and we also got into, and see, let me go off base. This is the benefit of these group sessions right here. So last week we talked about the different databases, and we got into a relational database, we got into a cloud database, we got into all these different type of databases. And I said, okay, SQL is SQL all day long. If you understand the core foundationals and the core concepts of SQL, you're good. However, there are different dialects. So what is a different dialect? The best way to explain it is Google Sheets and Microsoft Excel. Microsoft got Excel, Google got Google Sheets. When a client produces a database system, they have little things that they might put within their database system to differentiate what their product is in comparison to other people's products. So there might be a little twang, a little different in how you might write code in Oracle than you would in Microsoft, or how you might write code in Amazon Redshift, which is Amazon's cloud client, or GCP, which is Google's cloud client. There might be like a slight variation in how you write code within those systems. And when I say slight variation, it can mean something like Oracle is case sensitive. Some clients you have to put a semicolon. Some clients you this type of we're not this won't work. It can be like slight variations between dialects. And also a good way that a good example is it's just like all of us, we all speak English. We all speak English. However, if someone is from the South and someone is from California, someone's from New York, someone's from, any of these places, we all have different dialects, we all have different lingo, but ultimately we all saying the same thing. It's the same type of concept. So when you get into like when a dialect might not work somewhere, as long as you have like that core foundation understanding, you can Google and say, okay, well, I'm trying to do this in Oracle. And it might switch it up just a little bit. But as long as you know like what you're doing, you're gonna be good. And also to piggyback off of that question as well, is the biggest like the biggest factor within like those different clients or the different database environments is two things: how that data is stored. First of all, is that data stored on prem or on your computer, on your actual hard drive, like how ours is with the relational database, or is this data stored in the cloud somewhere? But the way that you navigate and write your code is the same. So that's a really good question. But yeah, this will depend based on like what dialect you're using. Yep. Any questions about that, y'all? All right. What about this? What about this syntax?
Would that be all employees?
Yeah, but what's the
With
condition?
salary between
Yeah.
40,000 and 70,000.
Yep. Now this is between. For some reason, between was used to be weird to me. I don't even know why. Even to this day, it's like girl. But between used to be super weird to me. And what between does is it's a literal range. So if I'm going from this column, where this column between this range and this range, ideally, it is not uncommon to use between as well with like dates. Like if I say, okay, I want to get all people who are born in the month of August or something like that. Or I need all people who joined in this day. Or I need the people who, this is a good example, have a salary between this range. But anytime you have a value and you need a range of that, between is the most appropriate logical operator to capture it. Also, I know last week we talked on data investigation, and you all had the ability to go through, do your data investigation, look at your data types, look at your data relationships. We're going to do that again. But I said all that to say that when you are using your logical operators, it's specifically between, make sure that you go and do your data investigation and say, okay, well, this is how this data is actually structured. So that way you can write your code to align with it. Um, okay, what do y'all think that this syntax is doing?
It's giving multiple departments. You
Mm-hmm.
want the employees from IT, HR, and finance.
Yeah, it's gonna pull all the records from this table where this column is in. So when I say in, I'm opening my parentheses and I'm gonna list out those actual values. That's when you're looking for multiple values within that column. I want this within that particular specific column. That is in. Now, when we get into our use cases, I'm going to lead this up because, like I tell y'all, memorization ain't really working. The goal is like for you to be able to go through, do your data investigation, figure out which tables, figure out which columns, figure out how to apply your logical operator to answer the business question. Everything is to bring value to the business or to answer a question that is qualifiable in a way with numbers. So, any questions about these?
A quick question: can you use because I'm just looking at it. Can you use in and not interchangeably if you're looking for specific things within a certain column?
You can say not in.
Hmm.
Yep, you can. Also within these logical operators, and that also brings up another valid point. Oh, don't play with you. You on the road tonight. Okay, so that brings up another valid point. Within your logical operators, you can stack. So let's say I want where this column equals this, or this column equals this, and this column equals this. Like you just keep writing your code. You break it down piece by piece by piece by piece to get what you need. And that's why when I start to give use cases, especially like next session and the session after that, when I start to get use cases, sometimes those use cases sound a lot more intimidating than what they actually are. And the reason being is because like you spin out all this, I need this and the average of this and the amount of that and this, that, and the third. When in reality, when you write your code, the way that I like want y'all to do it is break it down piece by piece. Okay, this line works. Okay, now let's go to the next line. Okay, now let's go to the next line. So you can pretty much stack these to get what you need and to answer your question. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Was everybody able to connect to the VM? All right, y'all can go ahead and pull up your database, and we can walk through it. I guess.
When I connected, I already had something pulled up on mine. Should it be
um,
blank?
yeah, say no. If it's gonna ask you to recover your file, say no, and let me know when y'all are good to go. All right. So let's go back over what we touched over last week. So last week we got within a database, and it was the introduction. So I go over those things again just to reiterate. So here's your server. That server is okay. Let me close it. Okay. So here's that server. That server is essentially that's the brain that keeps everything running. When you because you know if when you get your first analytic role, it is not uncommon for your organization to have multiple environments or servers. They call them environments. They serve as different purposes. You got your production server, that's like real life data, sales using it, marketing using it, HR using it. They need their data. Period. That's the production. You might have dev. Dev is like a sandbox. I'm over here and I'm working on code. I got a job or automation that I'm doing, which is essentially like a block of code that you schedule to run on a set cadence. I got an automation that I'm working on. I'm working on this project. I'm doing some data analysis over here. That's dev, that's that sandbox. So this is your server. That's the brain. Now we're gonna open this up, and now you see all of your databases right here. These black boxes are your databases. Now, remember how I told y'all how different dialects might require like different syntax? Regardless of whatever dialect you're in, it's going to be set up like this. Your object explorer is going to be over there. Um, it's going to flow like this pretty much. These are your databases. Now, for this, um, let's go within our orders DB. It might be like customer orders or orders DB. Let's go within that database. I like to use that for this one. So here we have our order, customer order. We have our diagram, and our tables here. So let's expand our tables, and you should see this view. It might be expanded, but you can just close it up like that. So these are your different tables within your database. Now, last week we talked about data investigation. I do not play about data investigation. I do that heavily to this day. And the reason why I'm so hard on it with you all is attributed to the fact of Organizations, um, they, I don't know how to say this. Organizations' data is not, regardless of, it could be a Fortune 500 company, it could be a, it doesn't matter. Organizations do not do documentation with their data. Like they don't. And with you coming into a role, it's important for you not to have that expectation. It's important for you to come in and say, okay, I've never stepped into a role where it's like clearly, explicitly labeled. These are our tables and these are our relationships and these are the data types and this, you're not gonna get that. So I don't like to set the cadence or the precedence that when you step into your first role that it's gonna be laid out like that, because it's not. So to me, I always try to hone in on to be as authentic as possible so that first of all, you're able to adequately convey what you know and how to do it. Secondly, it's not a it's not a rough transition for you when you step into that space. So, okay. Said all that to say, investigate your data, please. Get over there within your tables, open up your tables, look at your columns. Okay, we got our customer ID, we got our first name, email address, phone number. We got all of our data over here. Not only do you need to look at your columns, but look at your data types. This is an integer. This is a varchar. Look at your data types. Look at how your data is defined. What is defined? Literally, when this table is created, this table is clearly defined. That's one of the features of SQL. This table is defined. So here I have customer ID, PK. That's their primary key. PK, that's their primary key. Their primary key is the unique identifier for this table. No two of these records are the same. Then we get down here to this orders table. I got my PK, my primary key here. I got my FK. I got my FK. That's my foreign key. If something is foreign, it is not from there. So here I got my FK. That means that that key is a data, that key has a data relationship to another one of these tables in that database. So we got, look at that type of stuff. Look at how these tables define. Look at these data types. And that'll help you. Another way to do your data investigation, we talked about this, to right click and select your top 1,000 rows. And that'll actually give you the values of your table so you can see how how your data is structured within that table. I got my data types right here. I got my data definitions right here. It's defined right here. But I still don't know how it's structured in that table. So I don't know how to write my code. So when you right click and select your top 1,000 rows, it'll give you the opportunity to see how that data actually structured over there. Now, pop quiz. Can someone explain the data relationships between these tables in this database?
What do you mean the relationships? Like how customers related to order details?
Yep. When I say data relationships, literally how, if they, when I say relationships in my natural language, I look at two people, I'm like, they related. They're related because they have a common relative. Look at your data the same way. I'm going to my tables and I'm like, okay, these two tables are related based on this column. Based on, a column is a field. Based on this column or field. So when you go in to look at your database, let's start at customers table. What other tables is this customers table related to, and what's the relationship? How are they related?
Okay. Um, the orders
Okay.
table
Okay.
is related to the orders detail table.
Okay.
Hi. Oh, my bad. She get on my nerves. I'm sorry, y'all.
Cause why she holler as soon as you start talking?
Answer a question. Exactly.
They know. Oh, child, mine did the same thing to me. I'm like, girl, please. Okay.
Okay. So she look at me with an